Okay, just about 2 o'clock, so I'm just gonna get going on this. Welcome everyone, thanks for coming. We are gonna talk about QGIS plugins today. Um, one of the things that I will mention is that when I put this idea together of doing a webinar on plugins, I said, I'm just gonna take 10. I'm gonna take 10. I'm gonna call them great. Keith, I'm looking at you. And I'm going to chat about them. But when I started going through the list, I thought, oh, geez, there's a lot. So my 10 is actually more like 19. I cut that down. I had a lot more. So we're going to go through this kind of quickly. I just kind of want to open up you to this. This talk is really geared towards really any QGIS user, but possibly people who might be a little new to this and not familiar with the QGIS plugin environment. So this is a chance for you to really sort of dive in, understand how it works, understand where the plugin is once you install it, how you use it, things like this, and then just give you the tools you need to sort of dive into this and just start exploring the hundreds of plugins within the QGIS environment. So a little bit about me. I am the founder and CEO of Luna Geospatial, and I'll tell you a little bit more in a sec about what we do at Luna. I've been working with open source software since about 2007. I started doing some spatial statistics way back in the day. I was doing archaeology at the time. I was using programs like GeoDA, if anybody has ever used that before. And I quickly found QGIS around that time and just started falling in love with GIS from then and there. I consider myself now an expert in QGIS, PostGIS, GeoServer. I have a strong background in remote sensing as well and photogrammetry. My PhD thesis looked at deforestation and agricultural intensification in northern Belize and in the New River Lagoon watershed. And since then, I've worked in a bunch of different areas. I've worked in the conservation sector, government, archaeology, and even software development most recently. Which brings you to kind of what we do. We do consulting and training is one of the main things that we do with open source GIS, including QGIS, PostGIS. We do training, we offer support, but then we also do software development. We have a team of very talented engineers, software engineers that work for us, and we build custom web GIS, dashboards, data-driven applications, mobile-first applications, data portals. So all this can be built out custom with our team. We also set up GIS servers. So we do have fully managed cloud-based servers. We provide backup, support, training, anything that you need to set up your GIS. So I'm going to jump into this, but one of the things I will do is I'm going to turn off my camera so we can just focus on the slides and everything. I'm going to be doing some live demos here and switching around from desktops. So what are we going to cover? I'm going to start by doing an overview of the QGIS plugin environment. I'm going to talk, I've sort of grouped some plugins into general categories. One, general purpose plugins. And then we're going to talk about analysis and remote sensing plugins, some data access plugins that I think are kind of cool, some plugins to access commercial services or apps, and some mobile data collection plugins. I will say that this isn't like a top 10 talk that I'm giving right now. These aren't the best plugins out there. These are just some plugins that I've used, some that I've tinkered with, some that I've planned to tinker with, and some that sort of I think people should be inspired by if they're going to be building something comparable. So this all kind of grew out of a tweet, sort of random tweet that I just sent out on January 27th. I said, what are your favorite QGIS plugins? Let's hear it. And now what was really nice is that we had tons of people liking it, commenting it. There were discussions and people saying, you know, it was a kind of a nice feed to look at. And there, in total, there were 77 recommended plugins. I know this because we made a list. We went through it and we made this big list. But what's interesting is that given the vast number of plugins within the plugin environment, that really only represents 9.1% of all the plugins as of today. You know, it's a plugin environment that is constantly growing. There's developers all around the world creating these. So let's give a little bit of an overview of how this works. So when we talk about open source software, one of the subjects that comes up quite a bit is extensibility. right? The ability to add to it. So we hand you a bunch of tools and say, here you go, you can use these tools. But sometimes it's nice to say, you know what, I like those tools, but I want to develop something that takes that and turns it into something else and creates an entirely new user interface so that you can perform one specific task. Well, that's where a plugin comes in. QGIS has, as of yesterday, 849 plugins for QGIS 3. Now, this grew quite rapidly because as QGIS moved from version 2 to version 3, most, if not all of these plugins had to be updated in order to work in the QGIS 3 environment. So the number was low. I remember checking like several months ago, maybe about half a year ago or so, and it was something like 200 or 300 plugins. So I was surprised that when I went into this, I'm like, oh, wow, there's already 849. They're easily accessible from the top menu within QGIS. And it's a simple install, update, and uninstall process from that same window. So if you have never done it, it's as simple as going up to the plugins and click on manage and install plugins, and it looks at the repository and it shows you the list of available plugins. So in this, some are core plugins. So some started out as regular plugins, and then they grew into being part of the core QGIS environment. They're installed by default. They cannot be removed to my knowledge, or if you do remove them, you'll probably really break something. And some examples are DB Manager, Grass 7, Orfeo Toolbox, which does remote sensing, the processing panel, Saga, among others. So who are the kind people who make these plugins for us for QGIS? There's individuals, there's developers who say there might be researchers, they might be doing a certain project and say, you know what, it'd be really cool if we turn this into a plugin. They develop these. There's companies, there's very large companies now that are developing plugins for the QGIS environment. Governments, there's governments all around the world that are creating different type of open data access plugins that you can use. There's organizations. And there's also educational institutions. So researchers, research institutes that will create specific plugins for specific tasks. So plugin information. When we do look at a plugin, and here we are, we're looking at the Planet Explorer plugin, which we'll look at a little bit more at the end of this. We can find out things. We can get a description of the plugin, of course, but we can find out who the author is. There's a link to the homepage. There's a series of tags, and if we click on any of these tags, we can see similar plugins that have the same tag. There's a bug tracker, very important. There's a link to the code repository and the available version with date. So you can also report problems through the plugin environment, or at least get access to however you were supposed to report problems. You can report issues using the declared bug tracker. It's most often GitHub, but it could really be anything. You can create a new issue and make it as descriptive as possible. Also include your QGIS version plugin, QGIS and plugin version when you're making any type of ticket or reporting any type of issue. And one of the big things here is to be polite and supportive. Oftentimes these people are building these things out of their, on their own free time. They're doing this really out of the kindness of their heart and an interest that they have in developing this. So if you message them and say, your plugin is crap, they're not going to take kindly to that. And it's really not supportive within the open source community to do something like that. So be nice. Okay, where's the plugin? I don't know if I'm the only one who has this experience, but sometimes I install a plugin or I try something random and I'm like, all right, where is it? It's installed, and is it a button? Where is it? So that's because plugins can be placed in various locations, or you can gain access to the plugin once you install it from various locations within the QGIS environment. So you can have the top menu within the plugins. You can click on that drop down, and there'll be a bunch of plugins there that you've installed. It might put a new toolbar on the toolbar area. It might put something new in the processing panel, and it'll be a couple of tools that you can use, and you can use those within the graphical modeler. There might be a new panel. It might throw a new panel right up in front of you, and you can gain access to the tool there. And you can also have it might show up on the bottom info bar. You can also have additional items created within the browser panel. We're going to see that also during this review. But yeah, definitely this is always a problem. And one of the things I did want to say that I am probably, whenever I give live demos, anybody who's done it, it's a challenge. I'm probably going to forget where one of them is. So just bear with me as I try to find this little icon. I know some people on the other end of this are going to be pulling out their hair going, it's right in front of you. Why can't you see it? It's green. So I apologize for that, but we're going to make our way through this, people. All right, so some general purpose plugins. Coordinate capture. This is a great one. I love it. I use it all the time. It's simple. Guess what it does? It captures coordinates. So the user selects the CRS, which is nice, and it adds a toolbar button that opens a panel. So first one, am I going to find it? Yes, I am. I know I have these things lined up, people. Come on. So this opens up a little panel down here. And it's as easy as just going start capture, click on, and you get the coordinates. So now the coordinates are set obviously to WGS 84, but if we wanted to change that to something like pseudo Mercator, we could click this and all of a sudden we have these new coordinates. You can Control C, copy these out and move them all over the place. The other nice thing you can do with this tool is you can, if you hover over here, you'll see, click to enable mouse tracking. So as I move my mouse, it'll track. So if there's a specific location I'm looking for, I can go right there. And then when I click, it stabilizes. So nice little tool. I use it quite often. It's simple. It does what it's supposed to do. That's about it. So if you want to do something a little bit more, I didn't change. Look at that. The graphic is wrong here, people. It still says coordinate capture. So LatLong Tools. With LatLong Tools, there's more feature. It's more feature rich than the coordinate capture. You can zoom to coordinates. You can capture B boxes. There's a coordinate conversion tool. It's added to the plugin top menu, and there's also a toolbar. So on the top menu, the LatLong Tools ends up here, and you gain access to all the tools. So you can copy and display coordinates. So if I click here, it will actually copy. It's now on the clipboard. I would be able to paste it anywhere I want. So if I actually have a text box here, I could paste it here, and here are the coordinates. Very handy if you're going to do a few more kind of advanced functions with coordinates. If you want to just be able to export them. One of the things that I'm always impressed with this, there's really good help for this, but also the settings. It's quite extensive what you can do with this. So if the coordinate capture tool does what you need to do, just grabs coordinates. But if you need to do a little bit more, I strongly recommend this plugin. It's quite handy to use. Okay. All right, good. We have the right graphic. So get well-known text. This is great. I actually didn't know this until I tweeted that. I didn't know this was there, which I felt silly about that. I didn't really know this tool is out there. So it gets well-known text. It's called enhanced well-known text or JSON of selected features. It adds a bunch of buttons to the toolbar. So basically you select any type of feature and you will get what you need. And basically, as I said, it works. So if we come in and I have some boundaries here, and I'm going to select one. It's hard to see. Let me just turn this off. If I'm just going to select one of these, the buttons are right over here. So well-known text, you get it right here. And you can copy and paste this. So if you're using this within like a PostGIS query, you can actually use the EWKT. And then you can insert this into a PostGIS query, which is kind of nice. Or if you need it in straight up JSON, you can get it as such. Which is handy. So really easy. You can select multiples, I believe. I haven't even done this, but yes, you can. Oh no, you can only select one feature. Hey, look, limitation. So yeah, you can only select one and you'll get it, and it's quite easy to do. Okay, zoom level. This one actually is kind of neat too. So it reports the zoom level equivalent to those of tiled services. Really kind of handy. I've actually thought about this before and I didn't realize this tool was out there either. I guess I should spend more time searching the plugin environment. And all it does is add text to the bottom info bar. It really is nothing more than that. So if I go to it, as I zoom in, I don't know if you can see this on the screen, but in the bottom left here, it says zoom level 13.48. So this would be zoom level 13, 14, and so on. So if we're setting up a map canvas and we're saying, okay, you know what, I want you to a web map. I want the web map to start here. We can get the bounding box if you're using another tool. But as we're zooming in, we know that we have to set this to zoom level 18. which is kind of nice. I actually have that problem quite a bit, so I'll be using that. That plugin will be in my QGIS from now on. Discovery. This is actually one of my favorite ones. This is not a top 10. This is just some that I use. I like the ones that I use, but I guess, you know, I've gone through them. So the discovery tool. So you can configure custom search and zoom queries. This is really cool. So it works with GeoPackage, Postgres, and MS SQL. I've only done it with GeoPackage and Postgres, and it works great. I do it with Postgres layers all the time. And what's nice is that you don't even need to have the layer loaded. It just searches wherever it's located. And it adds a toolbar called, you guessed it, Discovery. So what's nice here is we can look at these parcels. These parcels are located, these parcels are located somewhere else. They are located in Windsor, Ontario. So if I search for something like John, I get all the John Street locations, all the St. John Streets, all the John Harvey Crescent. And if I click on them, it zooms in, it shows me the parcel. This is just OSM catching up. It shows me the parcel and it will eventually load. Let's do that again. Okay, so it zooms in and it shows the parcel. So what it does is it actually gets the geometry from the geo package. And for this, I've set it up with a geo package. It gets the geometry from a geo package. It loads it onto QGIS temporarily with a red outline. It zooms into that location, or it zooms into the bounds of of the geometry, and then it fades. And what's neat is that it does show on the top where you actually just zoomed, and it copies that to the clipboard, which is an added bonus. So how do you set up this magic? I'll show you one more thing before I show you how the magic is set up. But you can also search for community centers. So if I search for the word just Windsor, there is one. Oh, sorry, I didn't show you. There is the Windsor Water World. And if I click on it, it zooms to this location. So you set this up quite easily in the configuration. There's a button that has a little magnifying glass, and you can call it whatever you want. So this is the community centers. I just called it CCs for short. I have a geo package called Windsor Parcels, which actually has a bunch of other stuff in it. Should rename it. But in there is a layer called, there's two layers. There's Windsor Parcels and there's community centers. And the search column I want to search is it shows you all the columns in it. I want to search center. And what do you want to display? That means what do you want to actually display in this dropdown? I want the center field to show up as I search. And what's nice is that you can actually set up a bunch of these. So if I said, no, you know what? I want the FID, and I want the address, and I want the center to show up, but I only want to search the center field. Now, if I go, it's thinking, and I broke things. Yeah, there it is, Windsor Water World, and it shows the whole address, which is kind of neat. Click on it, zoom, it pops in, and it will zoom to that location that I just so happen to have been right on it. Windsor Water World, boom, brings you in. So this is a really handy tool because you can create several different connections. They can be to geo packages, they can be to a PostGIS or an MS SQL connection, and you don't need the layers loaded, which you notice I don't have any of these layers loaded. It will just search to that location. Very, very handy tool, if I could underscore that a bit more. Okay, so another general purpose one. I love this plugin, and Tom Chadwin and et al. Created this, and it is great. It basically will export a QGIS project to a fully functional web map application. It outputs it as an open layers, leaflet, or Mapbox GLJS application, and it adds a simple button to the dialog box, a simple button that opens the dialog box to the screen. So if we go into here, let's just zoom back into our parcels here, deselect them. Now we got to find this. I know this one was put in a weird place. Okay, create a web map application. What's nice about this is that you can update the preview. It will update the preview. It will show you what you're getting. There's tons of different options in here to change. You can have things. I did a point stacking one recently when I was fiddling around with it with Leaflet. I prefer Leaflet, just a personal choice. And you can do point stacking, which is really nice. And you can hover, highlight on hover. If I update that, then as I do this, it hovers. which is kind of cool. And when you export, it opens up directly in your browser and you can sort of see how this magic works, which is kind of nice, I think. And you can actually have a link to this PDF document associated with it. So you've done an amazing web map. It's pretty basic what comes out. Not in terms of the map is pretty advanced, but I mean, there's nothing around. There's no menu bar, there's no nav bar or anything like this. So if you were going to turn this into a more advanced web map application, you'd have a little bit more work to do with this. But it's great. It's something that I use all the time. I really enjoy using it. They've done a lot of work, and there's been a lot of updates to this plugin as well. I think every time I open it, I find something new. I'm like, oh, cool, they added that. That's nice. So yeah, used it quite a bit. Great stuff. Okay, let's go back to the magic. Okay, so that's that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some analysis and remote sensing plugins. And this is just a high level overview. Okay, so MMQGIS is kind of cool. It's a collection of QGIS raster and vector tools. Some of the tools include a geocoder and a reverse geocoder. Neat stuff. Tried it. It works. I'm happy with it. I don't use these very often, but whenever I do, I think it's kind of neat. There's some cool combination tools. Merge. You can do joins. One of the things I really like about the join is that it just creates the join and outputs a new layer from it, which is fun. There's some animation tools. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter kind of messing around with this. I actually have not tinkered with them, but as I saw them, I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. I got to play with that one day. So on my to-do list, and this is neat. It just adds a new heading to the top menu. So this is something we haven't seen yet. So if we go back to here, these MMQGIS tools basically just get added right here. Which is neat. So you have access to everything. So I suggest, installing these, playing with them. These are the animation ones. You can animate lines. I saw some demos online for this. It was really neat stuff. Okay, this is a big one. I've used this, I wouldn't say a lot. I've used this a few times and it's big. There's a lot to it. And this is like an application inside of an application. This is like a full-on remote sensing application that was built within QGIS, and it is powerful stuff. So you can conduct supervised classification on remote sensing imagery. Anybody who does any remote sensing, I strongly recommend you give this a go. Anybody who wants to learn a little bit more on remote sensing, the documentation for this is great. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube. And we've even reached out to the developer Luca and have had help in the past. And yeah, it's great stuff. I just strongly recommend. So there's tools for downloading, pre-processing and post-processing imagery. So you can actually download. There's available for like Aster, GEOS, Landsat, MODIS, Sentinel-1, 2, 3, and so on. It is very powerful. There's a lot of complex tools in here. So anybody who's ever done any supervised classification knows that the first step in this, but after some pre-processing of the imagery, is selecting training sets. So here you can do this and you can actually do the full process from selecting training sets, analyzing the imagery, and then assessing the accuracy of your model that you've created. Really neat stuff. It's well documented. If you click on the docs, there's tons on the homepage. And it's very helpful. Now it adds everything. So it adds buttons, panels, dialog boxes. It even adds up here the SCP. So there's some basic tools. You can do things like algorithm band weight, band set list, and so on. You can download products from here, and if you open this, it gives you a massive dialog box with a whole bunch going on, where you can search and download different types of products, and you can see the nice list of satellite imagery that you can gain access to. I hope it's a little bit faster than where I was downloading Landsat imagery a few days ago, which was kind of slow, but this is great. It's something that I can't say enough of. If I was going to give you a demo of this plugin, I think it would definitely take at least an hour. If I was going to give you training on this plugin, it would be a good solid 2-hour session to get through everything on this. And I think even then it would still just scratch the surface. So a lot of work there. So big thanks to the developer on that one. So QNeat 3 is, well, you guessed it, it's kind of neat. So it's a network analysis plugin. And you can do network analysis with a bunch of different tools. The last time I did it in Grass. which I kind of enjoyed. I don't use grass that often, but when I do, I enjoy it. But this is some tools that were built to do network analysis. So you can do things like distance matrices, ISO areas, and routing. The tools are added to the processing panel. So we haven't seen this yet. Let's take a look at that. So under the processing panel, we can find the QNeat tools. And here we have the distance matrices, ISO areas, and routing. So one of the nice things is that because the tools are now incorporated within the processing toolbox, you can do that if you're creating a model and using a bunch of different tools and stringing a bunch of different tools together, you can actually use these within that. So that's quite helpful. So good stuff there. QGIS to 3JS. This is kind of cool. I've never tinkered with this. I really thought it was something that, again, playing with 3D stuff in QGIS, I've done a lot of terrain analysis, but I haven't really done a lot of visualization in QGIS. I've done analysis and I've done hydrological analysis and this type of stuff, but I haven't really tried to sort of visualize it. This was neat. So you can view and interact with 3D models. So example, DEMs, and you can export to the web. I didn't get the export to the web part working, but I think I have to go through the documentation a little bit more. So it adds a button to the toolbar that opens a dialog box, which is, if we've gone through, if I'm right, I think this is it. Yes, it is. Okay. All right. Again, this is the painful part. If I go through here, I do actually have in my training stuff a BCDM. Sorry, let me just do something, not in the same area. Let's add this. Okay. Okay, so now this is just a DEM from, it's in British Columbia. And whenever I do anything with DEMs for any type of training, I always choose something from British Columbia because it is so mountainous. All right, so when we open this and we select DEM, this is literally how far I got with this. So it's processing. It's a big honking LiDAR derived DEM. Bear with me. Check your face snaps or whatever you kids are doing. All right, here we go. We're good. Look at that. Isn't that nice? We like this. This is probably the developers, if any of them are in this room right now or see this, they're gonna be like, wow, you were doing the worst job at demoing our beloved plugin. I'm doing my best, people. Okay, so you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can move around. And then there's also up here, there's tools. So you can export it to the web, you can save scene as, you can just export it to a PNG. You have a bunch of export settings, and there's plugin settings and so on. And you can change things about the scene and the camera angle and things like this. But for the most part, it loads. I like this alone because this is just a really cool way of being able to see a DEM, and I'm going to tinker with this a little bit more and be able to actually push this to the web and see how it works. I'm really curious how it works with a raster and you know, how much you actually have to load onto the server to get this to happen. So cool stuff, like it, makes me happy. All right, data access plugins. Trying to stay on time here. So, all right, so QuickOSM is kind of neat. QuickOSM allows you to download data from OSM. So you can easily download OSM data, you can build queries to download specific feature types. It basically just adds a button to the toolbar. So this is this one right here. So this opens up, I already did one of these queries. So I just searched for, I'm just gonna go back to, let me close this first. And then go back to where I am, which is London, Ontario, Canada, right here. And when I did this, I just did a search for schools, just schools in London, Ontario. And what's neat is when you're setting up the query, you can build the query based on whatever you want. Exactly, they show you like bakery, whatever you're looking for, and then you can store these queries. So I have these queries set right now. So if I want to rerun something, because the data probably are always changing, I can go in and say, okay, I want schools. So I press go and it thinks and it does its thing and we wait and I try to fill it with talking. And then it says 100% and it's done and it's loaded 2 layers. Now the first layer is not, the point layer is not really important to me. Well, what's neat is it's loaded the polygon layer for all the schools in London. So now I can go in, click on one, and I can get all of the attribute information and see that yes, indeed, it is a school within London, Ontario. This is nice because then you can save this as whatever you want. You can load it into your PostGIS database or a geo package, and now you have this data. And now because you have this plugin, you can update these data on a regular basis. So you can go through and say, okay, let's update the schools now. Maybe something has changed. The other thing that's nice about this is that you can go through and say, oh, you know what? Some of this isn't right. And then maybe submit some changes to OSM to update the data sets. Now, I will say actually for the last one, you know, you can't go through and download a mass amount of data. So if you're going to say, I want to download every feature in London, that's going to be a problem, whichever London you're working with. Because there'll be just a ton of data that you'll try and it will just time out at some point and say, you know, you're asking for too much. So try to limit certain feature types and just download those. Okay, quick map services. This is another one that's kind of cool. So it adds the search QML panel. It's an excellent source of base map services, and it adds 2 buttons on the toolbar, one which opens a panel. Now those were notes. Those are actually notes for me, so I can find these things. So these are some basic ones that we can add. So we already have OSM added to here, but there's a bunch others that we can have. But you can search, which is kind of cool. So let me just expand this a bit. And we can add a bunch of different imagery. So if we wanted to, let's say, I'm just going to start a new document, close without saving, and I can add the Esri imagery if I want, which is kind of cool. So that's available in this plugin. And there's also the map box imagery, if we wanted to add that one. And there's also Google satellite imagery, which is mostly aerials, but we call it satellite. And we can group these and we can make these mutually exclusive. And now we're all happy and we can toggle, we can zoom in just like that to a certain area and toggle between Esri, Mapbox, Google, which is kind of cool. Everybody sees the change. Yeah, really nice feature. I searched for a few things. There isn't a lot in my area, but again, it depends on where you are in the world in terms of how much data is available. Some specific data sets I was able to find, at least in this part of Canada, like the roads, I could load the roads through a public server. Really nice way of just gaining access to a bunch of public service, open data services. So really nice to have. I like this one quite a bit. All right, this is a really good example of a government organization that really leverages open source GIS quite a bit. And this is LIN, so Land Information New Zealand. Very good example of just making a library of information available to the public through a simple plugin. I absolutely love that they use QGIS so much. It reminds me a lot about how, from what I noticed in Canada, there's the upper level, it's like federal government will use a lot more open source GIS, provincial, not so much, municipal, even more, not so much at times, depending where you are in the country. And this is kind of the same in New Zealand, I've noticed, is that some of these like upper level organizations will actually use it quite a bit, and LINS is one of them. So it integrates with an API key, which is kind of cool. I only got one of them working. I had to log in, and a lot of this is built by a company in New Zealand called Coordinates, Coordinates with a K. They're a really neat company that builds these data warehouses for organizations. And they do a lot of work with the New Zealand government. And you can load WFS and WMTS services, and it adds a button on the toolbar that opens a simple dialog box. So I'll show you how this works. Let me just clear this doc, close this, goodbye. So right here, it opens up. So when I set this up, you can sort of filter and say, okay, well, I want to see everything that I have access to. You can go into the settings, and the only setting I set up, hey, look, you have my key. I think it's just public. Don't worry about it. And then you can gain access to the base map. So there's a bunch of different services. There's base maps, there's data, there's geodata. I didn't get access to the other ones. I just got access to these base maps. So I don't have any WFS layers to show you, but I do have WMS ones. So I used to live in a city called Dunedin, and Dunedin has two aerial photos here. So we have a 2013 and a 2018. So if I just click on it and click add layer, the magic starts to happen. Or QGIS crashes, one or the other. No, it happened. And this is the beautiful city of Dunedin on the South Island of New Zealand, which is kind of cool. So it loads pretty quickly considering where it's coming from. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's lightning fast, but it's enough to work with. And this is high res stuff too. So we can see what the average Kiwi is doing in their backyard. All of this is free and open access. I think some of them you have to actually register to get access to these data. Open data is great in New Zealand. I remember when I was there, I was working a lot with LiDAR data, and all the LiDAR data is available for the whole country. And all these aerial photos are available. I love that the high res are available pretty much for anyone in the whole country, whereas a lot of this I find, at least where I'm from, is it gets to be locked, quite locked down, and you can't just easily access these high res aerial photos. So good stuff. This is an example though, and I will just get on my soapbox for a sec. This is an example of what I think more government should do. So as opposed to having like a website that's like this data portal, if more built these types of plugins, it would be a really great way to access the information. And this one from Lynn's, if you need a blueprint for how to do this, these are the people to talk to, because this is really a great piece of software. All right, now let's talk about some commercial folks. We're going to go in and we're going to talk about how do you access some commercial services or apps. One of the things that's cool about this is that a lot of companies are now using QGIS. So oftentimes somebody will say, well, but who's using QGIS? Is it just like, some random people, some random developers who like to tinker with things? No, there's actually large companies that have invested quite a bit into open source software. So here, this is a neat one. This isn't built by here, but it gives you access to the API, the here API. So it integrates here services. You can geocode a list of addresses, kind of cool. I've done it, it works. You can get points of interest around a series of points. It adds tools to the processing panel. So if we go down to the processing panel, we can look for the here tools. And right here, we have the geocode list and these basically two tools that are available. Okay, easy stuff. It leverages the API, kind of cool. Thanks for making it. Setup does require here credentials. So there is, like, you can't just use the API as much as you want. There are certain limits, and I assume, I haven't done this, but I assume beyond a certain point, they're going to ask for some money. And it adds a button to the toolbar that opens a dialog box, and it also adds tools to the processing panel, so you can get access to the stuff in two different places. This is a big one, people. Street View integrates Street View into QGIS. Whew. This actually excites people, even though it's really quite basic. So you basically just click on the map, and the browser opens in Street View at the click location. So really, it's nothing fancy. It does what you'd expect it to do. So if I click on here and I say, I want to see what this looks like. Well, now I know what it looks like. Look at that beautiful sun. So yeah, it's really is what you expect. It does exactly what you think it's going to do. But it is handy, right? Instead of trying to figure out what the alternative would be, like getting the coordinates, going into Street View, searching for those coordinates, finding the spot, clicking on the map. So it does save some time, I guess. And again, it adds a button, and it actually adds an item also in the plugin menu. I kind of like when plugins are doing this. It's somewhere. I don't know, Street View right here. It's right here as well. I kind of guess my message to anybody who is designing these plugins, and if I ever design some myself, I'll try to do this. It's nice having it in here as well as a button, just so that you can find it in multiple places. I think that should be like a requirement. It has to show up here. Or maybe that's just me. All right, so plugins to access other commercial services. The Google Earth Engine. I'm a novice when it comes to the Google Earth Engine. I have not tinkered enough with it. Again, it's one of the big things that's on my to-do list. I have a friend who's very much into it and inspired me, and we had a nice little session together going through some of the things that he's been doing with it. It does require authentication, of course, and it functions with the QGIS code editor. So that's within the Python console. So there's no buttons or panels, which is cool. It just works within the code editor. Now, the cool thing is what gets installed is that all that's installed is a link to the docs in the plugin menu. So if you go in here and you go into plugins and you go into Google Earth Engine, all it is the user guide, and it just opens up in a browser and you can go through. But it's really neat in that in the code editor, you can actually do Google Earth things, which is kind of fun. Okay. Next up. Okay, this is a big one, and I kind of wanted to show this. This isn't like me promoting Planet's products or services, but it's a really good example again of a massive company that has sits on a whole bunch of data, wants to make it available. They obviously want to make it available for a price, but they've created this app, and you sort of have to say to yourself when people come up to you and say, who uses QGIS? Well, obviously a lot of people, or else somebody like Planet wouldn't be designing a plugin for it to gain access to their, billions of dollars worth of satellite imagery. Okay, so integrates with the imagery. You can search and download archive data, really cool. You can load global monthly base maps as XYZ tiles, and you can have 90-day free trial. That should say 90-day, not 90 free trial. You know what I mean? And you can contact Planet Sales for pricing. I honestly don't know how much this costs. I spoke to somebody a long time ago, but I think I'm going to have that discussion again in the future. I think this looks kind of cool. It has toolbar buttons and several panels. There's really a lot to it. I was tinkering yesterday when I was going through a lot of this stuff, and it creates this whole panel. I'm logged in, and you can gain access to if you click on this, you can gain access to stuff. You can say, okay, I want to search for the current map extent, and I want to filter these results. What do I want? I just want these ortho tiles, this medium resolution ortho tiles, and I want to go back and I want to conduct my search. This is going to lead to a whole whack of stuff. It's thinking. Or it's going to crash. One or the other. You never know. All right, still thinking. Well, this is, hey, there we go. Hey, look. Sorry, moved it off screen. Okay, so it worked. We got a bunch of images, right? So it does take time. So we've gone through like March 22nd, 2022. So literally a few days ago, if you want to access the imagery. What's neat is you can zoom to the extent of whatever image we're looking at. And you can also add a preview to your imagery. So I'm going to turn off this New Zealand imagery, and I'm going to add some of this stuff. So it adds the footprint, but it also adds the image, which is super cool. So you can go through and get an idea of what this image would look like. And then if you want to order it, you're able to do that through this. So you could actually click it and order these images, and you'd be able to then download them and gain access to them. So really neat stuff. I need to explore this more. One of the things I did play with a little bit was you can look through the base maps. So I could do like a global quarterly or a global monthly. I've already grabbed a few of these. So they're actually in my browser panel. I have them in the XYZ tiles right now. So I have a global monthly from July 2020. So if I throw this over on top, okay, turn that off. So now this is the global base map, or should be. It's thinking. And this is also because, I'm sitting here on Zoom sharing my video, so things get a little bit slow. But we can do this and just gonna load one thing so I can zoom into an area. All right. So now if we load this, we can now load this imagery. So this is the global base map that gets loaded. We know it's from July 2020. And it's totally cloud free. Really nice application. I don't know, this plugin's impressive. We can go in, you can even task, you can do tasking. So you can be like, okay, I want this area, go get it. And you can do that. And obviously all this comes for a cost, and I'm not, promoting this product, but I'm just saying that it's neat, and it's neat that they built a plugin that works so well within the QGIS environment. Okay, mobile data collection. If I was to do a talk right now on mobile data collection, I think it would take a good hour. So I'm not sort of going to do that, but anybody who's familiar with mobile data collection in QGIS, you know that there's really two big ones out there. There's QField, and there's a combination of this application called Mergin and Input. And both work very well. They have pros and cons, and they're both kind of working towards the same direction of having all your data stored somewhere in the cloud, but in different ways, and they work differently. So one of the nice things about QField, I've used QField quite a bit. You can convert a project into a mobile data application. So whatever forms you create, let's say within QGIS, you can then view them in this application. You can plug a USB cable and just transfer the files to your device and do it that way. But it also now integrates with the QField cloud. This really is in development. There's a lot of stuff that really isn't done yet, and it adds a bunch of buttons to the toolbar that opens a dialog box. So I won't do it with this image, but let's just say I just move this, and I have this image right now. I'm not going to do a full demo of this or how it works, but the QField, you have to package things for QField. So you would say, okay, I have this layer. You can go in, you can configure the current project and say, okay, which layers do I actually want to include? Do I want to include a base map? Which base map? Things like this. And then it'll all be packaged up. And then from this dialog box, you can actually just package it. It saves in a certain location. You copy those files to your mobile device, open them up in the QField Android app, and it will work. The other thing that I started looking at was, QField Cloud is actually here too. So you can actually create projects. So I created an account in there just to sort of get an idea of how this works. And in QField Cloud, I think it shows up. Oh yeah, sorry, it shows up here. So we have my projects. I didn't create any projects, but in the browser panel, you can create a new project if you wanted, and you can add to it, and then eventually I think that's going to be syncing to the mobile app. So whatever I add into there, it will be in there, and then I can, from the mobile app, I can collect data, and then I can sync it back to the cloud, and then from the cloud it syncs back to my desktop system. So kind of neat stuff. Handy little app to have. And the other big one that's on the market right now, and again, I will say that this one, as well as the combination of Mergin and Input, they both have, they do have pricing associated with them. There's a free tier that allows you to use it. You can create private projects and you can do what you need to do. But if you want to like work with a team, or if you want to store more data, depending on how they put their pricing charts together, you can pay and you can have access to more stuff. So both of them do have a paid plan as well as a free plan. So Mergin hosts QGIS projects and data. So what's really neat about this is it's accessible in QGIS and via the Input app to collect data in the field. You can add items, it adds items to the plugin menu, processing panel, and browser panel. And I'll just show you where those are. So within the plugin, there is the Mergin plugin right here, and you can configure it. This is basically just my username, and I can connect. So once we have that connection set up in the browser panel, it's kind of the same thing as QField. Again, there's some things that are quite similar between, you have access to these sort of public projects that are on here, but you can also right click and create a new project. And you could create a new project from the current project you're working in within QGIS. It will copy all the files out into the cloud. From the processing toolbox, You can also create a report. I haven't done this yet. I haven't really tinkered with this a lot. I will say that in terms of using a combination of like input or QField, there's a ton of really good walkthroughs, tutorials, presentations on YouTube. If you're wanting to dive down the mobile data collection route, there's a lot out there. We're going to be doing a webinar in the next couple of months. Not in April, our April ones are set, but probably maybe May or June, when, when people are out there in the field doing some work, at least in North America. So I think it might be a good time to do one. So we're going to go through and compare some of these and see what are some of the pros and cons, and actually get out and do some mobile data collection with both and see how they work out. So great apps, great plugins. So that's it. It wasn't 10. I think it was 19. I don't know if anybody was counting. But I will say my little plug here. So we are doing an introduction to QGIS. I was accepting people to register up until yesterday, but I'm kind of flexible on that. If somebody does message me and they want it, this is really a crash course for somebody who has no experience whatsoever in QGIS or limited experience, and you just kind of want to, learn it from the start. So if you are interested, I'm hosting 2 sessions. There's one on Friday. It's 5 hours. Well, 5 hours total, but it's only 4 hours of teaching. We have a couple of breaks and stuff in between. So from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then I'm doing the exact same one on the Saturday. So that one, I have a few extra spots available on the Saturday one. So if anybody wants to get in on that, there's 1 or 2 spots available for the March 25th. So that's tomorrow. So if anybody's interested in that, reach out to me. Register at lunageo.com/QGIS training, or just go to lunageo.com and look for training, and you'll be able to register for it. If I see you register, I will arrange everything and we'll get you into that class. But I will say that if you miss it this time, don't worry about it. We're going to be doing this one quite regularly. And I will say in April, we're going to be doing one on PostGIS. Another thing, register for a newsletter. We try to save paper, and we just try to sort of promote our webinars and anything else big that's going on in the open source GIS world. So stay in touch, lunageo.com/newsletter to do that. And we have webinars. You're at one now. So if you want to participate in more, see more, I'll be doing them probably every 2 weeks or so, twice a month. So I try to stay up on that. So with that said, does anybody have any questions? You can drop it in the chat, but I will say that if you turn on your mic or anything like that, that will end up on our YouTube video. So it's up to you. Okay, no big questions. That's wonderful. Thanks everybody for coming. And I will be throwing this video up on YouTube shortly. So you can look for it there. I'll be sending an email around once it's up and available if you want to rewatch anything. So thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.